man, this is normally when we do ForLCV Sundays, it's like sometimes we have balloons and there's like blow up things and we make it like a celebration and just big over the top. And this year it's a bit different. And I'm going to be honest for you, right up front, it's a different feeling. And I think it's okay because I think it's a very real, accurate expression of where we're at right now. At least where I'm at. I'll be honest with you. This has been one of the hardest weeks that I've had in recent memories. I was greatly impacted, like I said, with the Israel attacks and what's going on over there. My heart just breaks for that level of just evil, pronounced, evident, and it affected me to a great degree. And in addition to that, I found out on Monday that a friend of mine had actually passed away on Saturday before. Looks like the TV's not turning on. Maybe. I'm not trying to hide from you guys. It's a smart TV. But it has to be turned on. So my friend actually passed away, and this was an accident. It was a freak accident. He is just a couple of years older than me. He has a son that's in 8th grade. I worked with him for over 5 years, I think almost 7 years. And he's someone that, and the reason I'm sharing this, he's someone that I prayed for often. I mean, before I was a pastor, before I worked at a church, you have those people in your life where you're like, if you just were able to grasp God's great love for you, it would revolutionize your life. And I loved him as well as I possibly could. And I continued to pray for him. And I continued to bump into him even after it's been almost a decade since I worked with him. And continued to bump into him 3 or 4 times a year. And every single time, he'd give me the biggest hug. He'd pull over a chair and be like, hey, I got a spot for you. Like any restaurant I walk into, I always had a seat anytime he was there because he didn't care. He's like, I will make room for you always at my table. He was just that kind of guy. He shared his opinion very freely, but he also shared hugs all the time, and he shared his love and who he was passionately. I think what we're talking about today would have been and would continue to be the bridge for my friend to show up in church. He was not a religious person at all. But what we're going to talk about today is probably the reason that he ever would have showed up if he would have. He never did. But there's other Joshes out there. Right? There's people that you know, and maybe it's part of your story too, that would be impacted by what we're going to talk about to the degree that you're like, I don't know if I really believe in everything that the church says and does, and what I've seen and what I've experienced has kind of pushed me away. But what you're talking about, what you're doing, I can't not try to be a part of it. I can't not lean into it at least a little bit. These are the aspects of our church that I know Josh appreciated. When I talk to him, he'd be like, I don't know about all the church stuff, but that's kind of cool. What you're doing is pretty cool. Like, it's a big deal. I think Josh would have showed up to our 4LCV Sunday. This is a 4LCV Sunday. It is that God is for you, and so are we. We want our world, we want our community to know this. Before they ever show up to church, they should, if they've been around us, if they've been around you, they should know this, that God is for you. You don't have to do anything before you have to show up to church. Now, you don't have to dress a certain way, you don't have to act a certain way, you don't have to talk a certain way. Just show up. Just show up. And this is our opportunity every single year to unleash a wave of generosity in our community. That everywhere it reaches, it impacts. And this is, I love this, and you guys are so incredible at it. Year after year, you blow me away with your generosity. Last year, I think in this campaign alone, I think we gave around 4% of our entire year's income. Like, we just gave it right out the door, every single penny out the door. It was amazing. It was awesome. We do 4LCV throughout the year as well. This is our big push right now. We continue to do it. What we do right now is about 3 or 4 times more than we do the rest of the year combined. It's a big deal. The level of impact that you make in our community is amazing. Lives are changed because of it. And this is really why. Generosity is more than an emotional response. It's an intentional, implemented plan. So we think of generosity as like, the emotional moment. You pull up to the stop sign and you make the mistake of looking out the window and there's that person, you're like, oh, and you feel your heart feels something right then. And you have that tension, am I going to give? Am I going to do something? You're looking on the floorboard, scraping up change, like, what can I do right now? Because that person, you just look in, you're like, they're so beaten down, right? I think that generosity is more than an emotional response in that moment. That's great. We should feel that way. To be honest, I don't always give to those people in those moments. And if just talk about myself, because I don't trust that where my money, how I hand out my money, it's going to go to a place that's actually going to help them. I'll go buy them a meal. I'll go drop off food. I'll do that all the time. But sometimes that money thing gets into you, unless God is like, hey, that person now. Okay. What we're talking about today is more of a mindset of generosity. It's more the understanding. Generosity is more than a momentary action. It's a defining characteristic of your identity. That this is who we are as a people. If we're going to follow Jesus, we are generous. It's not a choice like, am I going to be generous right now or not? Do I have generosity in my life or not? No. If you're following Jesus, you are following him with your generosity as well. And my hope this morning is that regardless of where you're at and how you've navigated generosity before, and even if you don't know it, you have, regardless of how you wrestled with it before, my hope for you this morning is that you would decide to take this very seriously. That this might be a new direction for you. You're like, you know what? I've given in specific moments. You pick your time and place. But I haven't come up with a plan of how to be generous, ongoing, consistent. And this might be the moment that you actually flip that switch. You decide to take part in that. This could be something new for you. I know that one of the biggest hurdles when we talk about generosity and giving money away, one of the biggest hurdles is, well, I just don't make enough. I don't have enough money to give away. Once I make enough money, then I'll give it away. I got a plan in place. It's wait until then, and then I'll give it away. The reality is, and this is a sobering statistic, and we don't like to hear it in the United States, but it's real. If your household makes $60,000 together and you don't have any kids in the house with you, you're in the top 1% of wage earners in the world. If you have kids in the house, it's $130,000 combined. Top 1%. You're like, well, I don't make that much. 1% in the world, right? So maybe you're like top 3 or 4%. Wherever you're at, like we are so well off in comparison to the rest of the world. I would classify that as being rich. You're like, don't tell me that I'm rich. I would say that you're in the top earners of the world. If you have a job, you're home down a job, you got some income. In our country, typically, you're going to be one of the top wage earners in the entire world. That's hard. Because we don't feel rich. We don't feel like we have enough. We feel like we have to have more. More, right? I'll give once I get to that spot. I bring that up because all of us have been entrusted something. It might be less than other people. It might be more than other people. But you've been entrusted something that God has provided for you. You're like, no, I earned that. I did all the work. Well, God actually gave you the skills and the ability to do the work. He opened the doors of opportunity for you to get that job, to make that relationship that led you in that direction and eventually led you to land that position. Like he opens the opportunity doors for you all the time, whether we recognize it or not. He gave you the skills and the ability. You're like, well, I honed them. Absolutely. That's being responsible with the gift that you've been given, right? You're diligent to make sure that you improve what you've been given. Great. That's honorable. We have to recognize that God has given us something. He's entrusted something in our hands. And some of it, we're going to talk about money today. He's entrusted to us finances in our hands. And when it comes across our hands, he's entrusted it to us. And he's asked the question, what are you going to do with it? Okay, here's the open door. What are you going to do with it? Is your entire goal to make your life more comfortable, or is your goal to make an impact? Those are two very different end goals. I believe that we're going to be held accountable to what comes across our hand. And that's a sobering, scary thought as well. Now, there's incredible government assistance programs. And they fund so many incredible organizations. They fill out grants all the time. And awesome, incredible organizations that we're going to hear about in just a little bit get these grants, which is great. We love that. But here's the side effect of that. Here's kind of the thing that's attached to it. When the government is the one that's handing out the money, people get attached to the hand that's feeding them. I want us at Canyons Church to do something that people would be connected to their Heavenly Father and recognize that Jesus did something incredibly huge on their behalf. And there are people that believe in Him, that love Him, and want nothing more than to make that impact in other people as well. That we would tie people's hearts, not to a government assistance program, but to a loving Heavenly Father. And I believe that starts first and foremost, not with us out debating someone into what we believe. How many times has that ever worked? Raise your hand. No. It starts with generosity. That's where people see Jesus the best. So, I don't even know what my next slide is. I've been just talking. There we go. That's what we're talking about this morning. This is why this is such a big opportunity for us. Because it's not just us funding other organizations, which it is, but it's us actually acting out our mission and our rallying cry. It's a very real thing to turn people's hearts to Jesus. And it starts with our generosity. And this is the incredible part. When we think of Jesus and the crowds that followed Him and the people that showed up a couple thousand years ago, people that were nothing like Jesus liked Jesus. And He seemed to like Him back. And we get this wrong a lot. We think like, oh, if you went to church, you like Jesus. That's the way it went. If you went to synagogue, you like Jesus. That's our mindset. And a lot of those people showed up to try to argue with Jesus. The people that were nothing like Jesus, that felt the most judged, the most criticized, the most ostracized in the world at the time, showed up and followed Jesus around wherever they could. Why? Why do you think that is? I think it's because He showed them grace and mercy and love. We're going to look at Matthew chapter 11, verse 27. It's Jesus talking to a crowd. All things have been committed to me by my Father. No one knows the Son except the Father, and no one knows the Father except the Son. It's a bold statement, right? And those to whom the Son chooses to reveal Him. I mean, at this moment, if He would have just stopped, people would have been a bit upset. They're like, hold on. Are you saying the only way that people can actually know God, like know real God, know God the Father, is you? And Jesus would say, yes. That's exact. You got it. You heard me correctly. That's exactly what I'm saying. At that moment, I'm sure people are reaching for some rocks. They're like, okay, this guy needs to go. Like, this guy has got to get out of here. This is what Jesus continues on. He says, come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will tell you how sinful you are. And that's exactly why the crowds just showed up. That's not, just so we're all clear, that's not what He said. It's not what He said. He says, come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. The first thing that Jesus did is He offered rest. He continues on, take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. How many of us in this room, how many of us in this world that we look around and we're like, that person, I don't know what they got going on, but their soul needs to rest. My soul needs to rest. I don't know if there's ever been a time that I've been so aware of people that don't have restful souls than in this moment, in this season right now. I mean, people are just exhausted. I think that was a very similar feeling that was happening at the moment that Jesus said this, that people recognized He can do something about this burden, this weight. He continues, for my yoke is easy, and my burden is light. Now, a couple things about this statement, everything that Jesus just said. First of all, just to clear the air about what yoke is, if you're not sure, you're like, is that the egg yolk? No, that's a different spelling, not the same thing at all. So this type of yoke is actually more akin to, if you think of like mules that are plowing the fields, and you have the thing that goes on their shoulders, so the two of them are linked up together so they can do more work efficiently and effectively together. That's the yoke, right, that this is one of the ways that this is understood. There's other passages that talk about people being unequally yoked to each other. In this context, we're looking at this. First and foremost, what Jesus is talking about is that we're doing something together. There's a together aspect. That part of what he's actually offered to us, part of what he's asked us to do, called us to do, invited us into, is not us by ourselves. It's in community together. And there's work to be done. That this isn't, yes, come to me and I will deal with your weary, burdened souls. There's rest available, but it's not because you're going to sit down on the couch and just sleep the whole day. There's something to do. There's work to be done. In addition, you might have heard this before, but a yoke is also a reference to Jewish rabbis at that time. It was their teaching. It was what they would teach other people. It's kind of like they're bent on their Jewish scriptures and how you walk that out. You want to know what Jesus' yoke was? Matthew chapter 22, a little bit later, verse 37. This is what his yoke is. When you boil it down, when you get down to the crux of his message, someone asked him, what's the greatest commandment? And this is kind of a common question. People ask this every once in a while. And there's a common understanding in how this was how you would respond to it. If you're a good Jewish boy or girl, you will learn this really, really early. This is just like the given token response. So Jesus gives the token response. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. So, essentially, what's the greatest commandment? Love God with all that you are. Everything that makes up you, love him with that. But he doesn't stop there. He continues on. He says, this is the first and greatest commandment. And the second, not the question that they asked him, Jesus, and the second is like it. Like, there's 1A, it's a given token response. Everybody agrees. This is what we know. We're taught that this is the greatest commandment. But the second, 1B, is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. He reaches into another portion of Scripture, another of their Jewish Scriptures, and he pulls this out. He says, love your neighbor as yourself. So love God and love people. You want to know what Jesus was all about? It boils down to that. Love God and love people. He finished this statement, and he says, all of the law and the prophets hang on these two commandments. The law and the prophets, just so we're clear again, the law and the prophets is the entire Jewish Bible that they had available to them at that time. It's like everything that they believed in, all of the Jewish history, everything that, spoke to them, everything that they leaned into, everything that was taught at the synagogue, everything is dependent upon, is connected to these two things, to love God and to love people. To love God with all that you are, and to love your neighbor, those around you, as much as you love yourself. Jesus later, he actually simplifies it even further. With the disciples, they're sitting around at a table. He says, this is my single command that I give you. I'm not giving you a list. I'm not giving you a bunch of commands. I'm going to give you one single command. To love others as I have loved you. And then immediately following that, he marched to the cross and laid down his life for them, for us. That's what Jesus' love looks like. It's sacrifice. And if we think of love as just like happy-go-lucky, emotional Disney idea of love, we got it completely wrong. Love is absolutely the sacrifice that is made. People approached Jesus because they hoped that he could do something about their brokenness. They hoped that he could do something about that burden, the weakness that they felt, the weariness that they were carrying around. Not to stay broken, but that he could actually do something to heal them, to start to grow in those arenas, in those areas. And if you want to look at what Jesus said when this is acted out, so those are the two things, right? Love God, love people. If you want to see what that actually looks like acted out, there's a great chapter that we're not going to look at. It's in a letter, 1 Corinthians chapter 13. It's called the love chapter. It's not about romance, but you should check it out sometime. We're actually going to look at a kind of condensed version. This is a letter that Paul wrote to Timothy, and there's a very small portion in there. And I believe that this is what love acted out looks like. 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 18. Command them. This is not optional. If you're a Jesus follower, not an option. This is what we are to do. To do good, to be rich in good deeds, and to be generous and willing to share. You're like, well, that's pretty simple. Yeah. Yes, it is. To love somebody is pretty simple. It's not a mystery. It's not like, well, I don't know how to love them. Yeah, you do. It's right here. It's right here. Do good. To be rich in good deeds, and to be generous and willing to share. The reason why I talked about my friend Josh before, because people that don't see the world like we see the world, people that don't believe like we believe, the strongest draw that they will ever experience to the love of God is by our response with what we do with what we've been given. People see Jesus in our generosity. Not in a debate, not in an argument, not in a pamphlet that you throw at someone. That's not where they see Jesus. They see Jesus in our generosity. Now, I'm going to talk for a little bit about what we're actually going to do with that. So this year in our ForLCV campaign, we've specifically chosen a couple of different organizations that we're going to partner with. And I'm going to ask you to give money, too. Because every single last dime goes right out the door to these organizations to make a bigger impact in our world. So first of all, I should mention that St. Vincent de Paul Social Services, we continue to work with them throughout the year. This is a fifth Sunday, and any month, if you've been here for a while, any month that has a fifth Sunday, you know what's going to happen. We're going to do a food drive, and we're going to donate hundreds of pounds of foods. Foods? Sure, we'll roll with it. We're going to donate hundreds of pounds of food to our community that is in need, just to put some food on some tables that don't have food on them currently. This is great. Love doing that. We're going to continue to do that. Another one that we're going to continue with, actually this is a new one this year. We're going to partner with Habitat for Humanity. Habitat for Humanity is an incredible organization. We actually have a couple folks within our teams that are on the board, director of the board, I think, recently. But Siri just spoke to us. But we're going to build some playhouses. So this is an initiative that they have going on, and they're looking for organizations, outfits, people to build playhouses for kids that don't have a place that's safe to play. So we're going to do that. There's a couple of them that we're going to build. Our goal is to build 2 of them. Those are about $1,500 a piece. So we want to fully fund those and then build them ourselves also on location. So this morning, I'm not going to tell you the locations yet, and I'm not going to tell you when this is going to happen, because if we have enough people sign up, it's going to be at 2 different locations. And we're going to have a little bit of a competition to see who does it well and gets it done first. So it's going to be a lot of fun. If we don't get enough people to sign up, then I'm just going to ask the people to sign up to do it twice, and that's going to change the dates also, so I'll let you know. But there's a sign up out in the lobby if you are skilled with construction at all, or even if you're just like, I can't hammer a nail, but I can paint something sometimes and get it on the thing I'm trying to paint. Like if you just want to volunteer some of your time, we would love for you to sign up. There are sign-ups out in the lobby. Don't forget about that. So the next thing is and we love this organization in this community. It is so needed. Is Young Lives. I don't know if you might be familiar with Young Life. We love Young Life. An arm of Young Life is Young Lives. I know it's very similar. It's hard for me to enunciate clearly enough. Young Lives is actually an organization that focuses on teenage pregnancies and those young mothers that are walking through one of the scariest moments of their life to try to figure out, what do I do now? How do I take care of this child? How do I prepare to take care of this child? How do I even hold them? How do I put a diaper on? Like all these different things that they have no idea. They're not skilled. They're not trained yet. Young Lives comes alongside them, loves them well, tries to provide things that they need and what their baby is going to need and does need. So they just try to walk along with them in such a difficult, hard season of life. So we're going to partner with them. This year, they're going through a few things. One of the ways that Tyler said that we can best serve them is actually to fully fund a Christmas party. Right? This is a big tension. You can imagine a young girl pregnant in an inopportune moment. Right? That's not probably what she planned on. Now she's got a family to try to think about and what she's going to do. She's probably had some people walk away from her, turn her back on her. We have an opportunity to have Christmas for her and for her child. Provide some things for needs, as well as just an embrace, like a kid that gets a present. She doesn't have money for a present, but we do. We can do that. So that's coming up also. Obviously, we haven't even had Thanksgiving or Halloween. So Christmas is a little ways away. We're going to continue to talk about that, but that's also coming up. I want to make sure that I talk about that for a little bit. So Young Lives is another one of our strategic partners. The last one that I'm going to talk about this morning is our LC Valley Youth Resource Center that we love and have partnered with the last several years. Michelle is actually here. She's kind of the head, the face of it all. And she is here this morning. She's going to be out in the lobby afterward. And if you have any questions at all about the Resource Center, she would love to talk to you. If you just want to cry because of how incredible the organization is and how they are meeting needs of some students that are in such a hard and difficult spot, and how they're showing up in the right moments, that God is placing them there. She's telling me that her son, who's part of the Resource Center, he actually in one day was a part of 2 different suicide preventions. These are students. These are not adults. These are students that don't have a place to live, that are going through some hard times in life, and that to the point and to the degree that they want to end their life. And this organization is standing on those front lines, fighting for students to see that they have value and worth, and people care about them and are willing to give up some of the time or funds in order to make sure that those students and those kids know that there's a God that loves them. That's what we want to partner with. So again, and she's got some big, huge, massive dreams. One of them is, and this is heartbreaking, so the Resource Center, if I wasn't clear before, the Resource Center is for kids that are displaced from their homes. Like they don't have a bed to sleep on. Their home is not safe, or they've been kicked out, or they're couch hopping for a while. These are the kids that they're trying to help. But the problem is, after a certain age, they age out of the program. And these are not kids that are set up to be ready for life after that. I mean, they've just tried to figure out that they have value and worth, and all of a sudden they're kicked out of the only place in their world often that has told them that they have that. So she doesn't tackle small things. She's decided that there needs to be a second location, a second organization to step in for those young adults to now continue to have a spot to be, a safe place, to be able to sleep, be provided for, be loved on. So that's in the works, but there's got to be enough funding in order to get that started. We want to be part of that. We want to be part of where our community has those greatest needs. So, again, if you're just here, and you're just checking out church and you're not really sure about the whole faith thing, and someone twisted your arm or promised you lunch or a date or whatever, like, if you go to church with me, I'll say yes, okay? Regardless of how you got here, okay? I think, this is my hope in our world. I hope that after what you've heard, you're like, I don't know if I believe anything that they're talking about, but I do want to make a difference. Absolutely. We're going to try to make it really, really, really easy for you to do something today in order to make a difference in the lives of students and kids and people in this community in Valley. If, though, you are a Jesus follower, you're someone that's decided, I'm going to follow Jesus with my life. You follow Jesus with every aspect of your life, your wallet included. That doesn't get held back or pushed away like, I do enough on my own, I serve enough, I do all. If you're going to follow Jesus, it's with everything that you are. Love the Lord your God with all that you are, heart, mind, and soul, and wallet, right? This is all of who you are. Everything that comes across your hands. Because this is what I believe. The reflection of God's love is best seen by our sacrifices. And my friend that I just lost, if he would have experienced and seen this, I think this would have been the thing that would have drawn him and pulled him in. And I know that there are other people in this valley and in this community that would absolutely have the same experience. If they would just see it, if they would just experience it themselves, they're not going to be argued into it, but they will be drawn into it. Why? Because of our mission, to inspire people to follow Jesus. Not argue people into following Jesus, not debate them into following Jesus, to inspire people to follow Jesus. That's action. That's generosity. That's sacrifice. So, our agenda is to love first. Our belief is that God's love it transforms. Our agenda is to love first. Our belief is that God's love transforms. So here's the thing that's going to happen. There's a couple ways that you can partner with us. Again, like I said, I'm talking about money. Every dime that goes to ForLCV goes right out the door to these organizations. We try to make as big of a splash as we can in this moment in our community. The first way to give, and it's probably kind of the old-fashioned way, if you have cash, if you have a check that you want to, write, it's out in the lobby. There's a drop box out there. There's envelopes out there. Just make sure that you earmark it. You put in the memo line that it's ForLCV, because otherwise it just goes to our general fund. The second way, and this is super duper easy, okay? If you have a smartphone, more like better than the TV. But so this is called a QR code. I don't know if you're familiar with it. It's real easy. If you pull out your phone and you open the camera and you just with a steady hand look at that from where you're sitting, you don't even have to walk up here on stage. Just where you're sitting, it'll come up with a link. You push the link and it goes straight to the giving opportunity. If you've never given here at Canyons Church, let's ask you a couple quick questions. And then if you have given, either way, it'll direct you to our giving spot and opportunity. You can fill out how much you want to give, and you can fill out, make sure that you tag the fund goes to the ForLCV fund. Now, obviously, we do have other funds that are needed to be met in this church, but I love the generosity here. I do want to say one more thing before I let you go. So grateful for you guys. I'm so grateful that I'm part of an organization that loves, right, with their heart on their sleeve, that we do something about the needs in our community, that we care about the people in our world that are hurting, that we care about the people across the world that are hurting. Church is not a club for people that believe and think the same way that you do, to show up on a Sunday morning, to sing some songs that everybody agrees with, and just have a kumbaya moment and go on with our week. Church is a place to connect with a loving Heavenly Father. And hopefully it draws other people in. And maybe that's your story, that you experienced something different. And because of that difference, you took a step and then another step. And that's our hope. That's our hope. Again, I try to make this as easy as possible, but please, if you have any questions at all, I'll be around. Ask our guest services. If they don't know, again, I'll be around. Our discussion questions, because I always have discussion questions, even though my wife makes fun of me about the discussion question. That's a joke from last week, which was great. If you missed last week, you should check it out online. Our discussion questions for the week. How am I currently prioritizing generosity? Some of us, you're like, yeah, I'm just waiting for the right moment. That's not prioritizing it. You deciding and implementing a plan. This is how I'm generous. How much? How often? When it comes to our ForLCV Sundays before in the past, years past, I've actually said, here's the goal, X amount of dollars, $39.99, right, whatever. This year, my goal is simply participation. That's it. I don't care what it is. Honestly, I don't. That's between you and God. If you want to give $5, give $5. You want to give $500, give $500. Generosity feels like something. It's not scrounging around on the floorboards of your truck just to clean up your truck to hand out to somebody else. That's not generous. That's just cleaning. Generous stings a bit. You're like, phew, you mean I have to give up something in order to do that? I had that earmarked for something else. That's going to be fun. That's generosity. When you're giving up, when you're sacrificing for someone else, that's generosity. Last question, because I only did 2 of them this week. What is my next step of generosity? What is it? Hopefully today. But if you're going to actively implement a plan in your life of generosity, what's this look like moving forward? Come up with it. Talk to your spouse. That's probably a good first start. Come up with a plan. How often? Where? What? How much? And then put it into place. I'm going to pray, and then we're going to go and make an incredible impact in our community. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for today. We thank you for today, even in the midst of pain, even in the midst of chaos, anger, frustration, in the midst of our anxiety, in the midst of the pain that we feel, the burden that we're bearing, the the exhaustion that we're experiencing. We are grateful that there is a God that is real. There's a God that knows us, sees us, that loves us, that cares about us, that is with us and that is for us. And we know how much you care about us because of what you gave up for us. The life of your Son was sacrificed. You love us. And you love us even when we don't know you yet. And you love those in our community that feel like they're far from you. And I pray that this morning we would respond by action in such a way to leave an imprint on the hearts of those in our community that would tie them not to a government assistance program, but would tie them to you because they recognize that you are real and that you are aware of them and that your heart is for them. God, we love you. We thank you that you first loved us. In Jesus' name.